Hi everyone. In this video, I'll just share some techniques and tips on how you can go about doing the layout process for pretty much any project, right? So what we're doing is we're using Maya for this, and I have an example of a shot list that we want to create a previs or we want to lay out scenes with. So we already talked about what layout is. What we're doing now is we're just trying to implement the workflow inside Maya. So I'm currently in Maya now. And what I'll do is I'm going to set up my project first because you need access to things like the environment and characters to be able to do your layout. So what I'll do is I'm going to set my project up, and this is the project I shared to students. So I'm going to set that project up. Again, you want to install OneDrive for this to be able to access that project directly in your computer, right? So I'm going to set that project that's in the forest, and then I'll just have a look at our shots or our shot list. So definitely we're going to be needing the character, we're going to be needing the environment, and maybe some props. So I'll concentrate on the characters and the environments first. So what I'll do is with an empty scene, I already set up my project. I'm going to import the characters. So for this one, I'll just import the blocking characters. So under the scenes directory, there's going to be blocking there. Again, I can choose to import the rigging one, but that involves me using the rig. Rather than using the rig for the characters, I'll just go to blocking and then import the gecko character. And I'll also import, let's say, the whack character here. So I have the whack character and have the gecko character. I'll turn on my hardware shading so I can see both of them. So now the idea behind this is now I have my whack character and I have my gecko character there. I'm going to now, for the environment, you can either import the environment or you can just create a reference for the environment. So what I'll do is I'm going to create a reference for the environment. The difference between importing and referencing is that with importing, you're basically creating a version of the characters inside your scene. But if you're creating a reference, what happens is you're referencing a scene, meaning any changes done to that scene by someone else will automatically get updated in your scene as well, or in your Maya scene or your layout scene. So for this particular instance, I'll just create a reference and I'll go to environments for this, and I'm going to create a reference, which is environment forest lab. So reference there. So what's happening right now is I now have the characters and I also have the environment for this. I can now start setting up my scenes or setting up my shots. I'll make sure that there's no lighting there. That's fine. It's going to take some time to load the textures. So if you don't want the textures to be there, you can just turn off texturing. But for me, I'm fine. So what I'll do at this stage, right, is I'll have a look at my shot list. I'm going to start with an establishing shot. So what I'll do is I'm going to change my settings or my layout here. I'm going to change that to layouts. And to create my layout sequence, I'm going to be using a special window called the sequencer. So what I'll do is I'll go saved layout, and then I'll just go perspective camera sequencer, which is this one. And what happens is you have a sequencer here. The sequencer is basically it's like an editing package within your 3D app. In this instance, it's Maya. What we're able to do is we're able to create cameras, and we're able to create or sequence those cameras and sequence those shots. So I have my camera sequencer here. So my first shot, right, is going to be an establishing shot, roughly around 5 seconds. So what I'll do is I'm going to create my camera for that establishing shot. So I'll go create, camera, camera. So this is going to be a free camera. So this is going to be shot 01 camera. Okay. Now what this means is for every single shot I have, I'll probably have my own unique camera there. So I'm going to look through that camera. And then what I'll do is I'm looking through that camera. It's called shot 1 camera. I'm going to go to my attribute editor because what I like doing, right? I like going to shading. That's under view, And then I want to go to camera settings, and I just want to go and turn on resolution gate. This gives me a pretty good idea of what my shot will look like. So this is going to be the framing for my shot. I'll just turn off this tab so I'll have a bigger real estate, and then I'm going to close this. So there you go. So that's my shot. That's how my shot is going to be framed for shot one. I like going to my attribute editor because I like going to my attributes for my camera, and I like going to display options, and then I'll change the mask color to black, and then the mask opacity to 1, so that I won't be distracted with anything else happening around it. So maybe I'll just make it a little bit less opaque. So maybe something like that. So this particular shot is going to be roughly around 5 seconds. So just to show you, it's 5 seconds. It's basically a dolly in, right? So what I'll do is maybe I'm going to frame that camera. Again, I'm using camera 1. So it's going to be an establishing shot. Now don't panic if you have something like this, primarily because that's a clipping plane issue. So what do I mean by that? Just select the camera, just go and the attribute editor. You can modify the far clip plane to make it bigger, so add another 0. And then the near clip plane, just make that, I guess, bigger as well, so maybe 1. And notice what happens, you have a cleaner view. So what I'll do now is just create my establishing shot. So maybe my establishing shot goes from, maybe it starts like this, goes up, and then I'll dolly in. So that's roughly around 5 seconds. So what I'll do is I'll select my camera, I'll use my time slider here, and then I'm going to just animate it. This is 24 frames per second. Just to show you, I'm clicking on this button here. I'm using my time slider. It's currently at 24 frames per second, and then my playback speed is 24. That's important because you don't want this to be playing every frame. So I'll hit save. So at this stage, right, what I'm going to be doing is perhaps setting it up. I can animate the camera, but I know that I can just animate later on as well. I'll prefer creating my sequence now. So this is going to be, or maybe I'll just do it like this for now. Okay? So what I'll do is I'm going to create my sequence. Notice that this is the camera sequencer. Remember, we can do it by going Save Layouts and going to Camera Sequencer here. So what I'll do is I'm going to create my first shot. I'll hit Create, and I'll go on Create Shot. So it will open this window. I'm going to give it a name. Remember, it's going to be my shot 01. And if I have a look at my shot list, it's going to be an establishing shot. So I'll just give it a name. So shot 1, establishing. It's going to be roughly around 5 seconds. So what I'll do is I'm going to perhaps change my camera first. So it won't be using the perspective view. It'll be using my camera that I created. It's going to start between frame 1. So it's roughly 5 seconds, right? So 5 seconds at 24 frames per second. So if I just use my calculator, for example, 24 frames per second times 5 seconds is going to be 120 frames. So it's from frame 1 to roughly frame 120. Now, an important thing here is currently the new shot placement is set to current frame. This one is totally fine. What you want to do though is for this one, this is important. You want to change this to manual. You want to make sure that the start time here is exactly the same as the sequence start time. The end time here is exactly the same as the sequence end time. The reason for this is you just want, the sequence basically tells you what the animation that will be happen within that period. To make it easier, you just need to make sure that the movement, the shot itself reflects the animation on that particular time. So you just want to make sure that this is the same as this is the same as this. So with that done, I'm going to create my first shot. And notice what happens. Under my sequence, I have my first shot there. It goes from frame 1 to frame 120, and the sequencer itself has even a playback button. So see, notice you won't see anything because it's not really animated, but you are able to play it. Now, your next option might be to animate the camera. So what I'll do is, I have shot 1 camera here. I know that it's supposed to animate between 1 to 120. So what I'll do is at frame 1, I'm selecting my camera by going select camera or just clicking on it here. I'm pressing S, or you know what, I'll start here. I'll press S to set a keyframe. So that's for my camera. And maybe I'll animate it to frame, I don't know, 70. And I'll just go up a little bit. And then I'll set another keyframe. And then at frame 120, I'll just have it go inwards a little bit like that. So I'm going to set a camera or set a keyframe. So this is going to be my shot. So again, this is this is a bit strange, right? Because you now have your camera sequencer and you now have your playback area over here. But if you animated it in between 1 to 120, notice what happens. If I hit play here in the sequencer, you actually get the animation that you want. So there you go. So that's my first shot. I'll go and create my next shot. I'll probably create like 3 shots for this. So my next shot is going to be wax fixing a machine. So what I'll do is maybe I'm going to lay out the robot character. It's his fixing the machine. So what I'll do is maybe I'll go to my perspective view this time. Okay. Then I'm going to grab Whack, which is this character here, and I'll just look for a machine. Now, again, I still have that camera clipping issue, so I'll select my camera here, the perspective, and then I'll just add 0, and then change this to 1. So what I'll do next is I'm going to go and grab the group here for Whack. So I'll just animate the group. I'm going to reposition Whack. Maybe he's fixing the machine. Maybe the machine is fixing is this one here. So what I'll do is maybe I'll just rotate that. And then I'll just move this down. And then I'll just frame it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe something like that. Now, take note that it's quite small. This one, what we can do is, see, I probably prefer that this one, as a layout artist, you can do this, right? So what I'll do is, for this one, I probably just want that to be lower, so he can actually see the control panel there. So remember, I'm selecting the Whack group, and maybe I'll just reposition that to maybe somewhere there. Now, actually, for this one, it's a bit tricky. So what I'll do is I'll actually prefer. So maybe I'll just zero this one out. I actually prefer, because we imported it, right? I actually prefer unparenting this robot Whack, because when you created or when you imported it, it grouped everything together. So I prefer just having it like that. I think it's probably easier. So ungroup it to its original, and then maybe I'll animate this. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to reposition that maybe somewhere here. So I prefer this one. Because again, when I imported it, it created that. So maybe I'll just reposition that somewhere there. So maybe I'll snap it here and then reposition it down, lower it, and then I'll just rotate it like that. Okay, and then I'll frame it. There. So again, I'm not concerned about posing the character. I'm just more concerned about positioning it in my shot. So maybe he's fixing something there. So what I'll do, right, is I'm going to set this one at frame 1. I'm going to just set a keyframe so that it won't fly away or it won't go anywhere else. So I'm just, for that particular, for that particular position or point in time, I'm just pressing S to set a keyframe so that Whack will start the scene here. So the next shot is going to be a long shot. It's Wax fixing a machine. So what I'll do is I'm going to create another camera. So we already have our first camera there. I'm going to create another camera. So I'll just create camera. And then I'll just call this shot 02 perhaps. And then I'm going to call this, camera. There you go. And then I'm going to look through that camera. And then remember, I like going to camera settings, resolution gate. And then I want to perhaps reposition our camera. If I have a look at the shot list, it's going to be a long shot. So maybe, you know what, maybe not too long. Maybe from... So I'm trying to frame it better. So I'm thinking somewhere there behind the trees. Now, on top of that, what you can do is you can select the camera, and then maybe you could play around with the focal length. So if you want a wider view, you can. Maybe for this one, I actually want a different lens. So maybe I'll just use that. And there. Actually, I like that shot. So I'm framing it with two trees beside framing our shot there. And then what I'll do is maybe, again, I like that shot. So I can choose to animate the camera if I want. But you know what? Let me just create my shot now. So I'll just go create, shot. Remember, we already have an existing shot. It's from frame 1 to frame 120. So what I'll do is I'm going to create a new shot, shot 02, and it's going to be whack fixing, for example, or whatever name. So wax fixing. You probably want to give it a name to make it easier. So this is our shot. The camera it's going to be using is shot 2. And then this is going to be the tricky bit. You want to make sure that the start time of this is the frame exactly after your previous shot. So our previous shot goes from frame 1 to frame 120. I want my start time here to be frame 121. So as I mentioned, it has to be the frame exactly after the last shot. So this is going to be roughly around 3 seconds. So it doesn't have to be accurate. You can always change that later on. So 3 seconds is maybe so roughly around, I don't know, 24, 24, 48, 72. So maybe let's say 75 frames. So maybe 121 to 190, roughly. Again, remember, you want to make sure. You know what? For this one, maybe 200. Let's just go 200 then. So I'll just copy that, copy, and then again, making sure that this is exactly the same as this is exactly the same as this, and then we set that to manual. This looks good. So what I'll do is I'm going to create my shot, and notice what happens. We already have that shot there. Now, just to prove my point, let's see how that looks. If I hit play, notice that that's my first shot. It goes and then cuts to the next shot there. Okay, so now we have some sort of sequence going. Okay, now the question is, what if you want to change the length of it? Yes, you can, right? So what you can do, and this is my recommendation, you can technically move this, but just be careful with that. I actually prefer you don't do that. I prefer that you actually just do this, meaning just change it manually here in your attribute editor. So you have to make sure, again, that this one is the same as this is the same as this. So what I'll do is, if you just want it to be going to frame, I don't know, 100 or 110, just change it to 110, and notice what happens. It does change, and then just here, change that to the frame afterwards, which is 111. Again, and then make sure that this is the same as this, right? So this one. So that's where we got it wrong. You have to make sure that that's the same. So see, notice now that you are able to change it. Okay, there you go. So as I mentioned, you can choose to animate the camera afterwards if you want. So what we can do is I can select camera 2. Camera 2 goes from frame 111 to 200. So you probably want to make sure that you're animating within that time period. So remember, frame 110 to frame 200, from 111 to 200. So you can animate before maybe 110 and then all the way to 200. So let me just increase this to 220 so you can see the entire frame of that. You can even move this so you can concentrate on that bit. But see, it's supposed to be from roughly around 111 to 200. So you can animate or set a keyframe earlier and then set a keyframe later. But you don't want to create keyframes in between 111 and 200. So for example, this one, maybe it's going to be a simple pan, left, right, or maybe a dolly in as well. So what I'll do is maybe keyframe this, select camera, keyframe this at 110. Again, I'm selecting shot 2, right? And then maybe at frame 200, I'm going to just dolly in a little bit and maybe move that thing to the left. And maybe there. Okay? So what I'll do is press S again, and that's our shot. There you go. Okay? So, if I have a look at my shots now, if I hit play, notice now that I'm able to, oops, not that, you actually want to play in your sequencer. So that's our first shot, all the way to 110. That's our next shot. And then just for this one, I'll maybe create my third shot. So this is going to be a medium close-up with whack struggling to fix his device machine. So maybe it's going to be a medium shot. I'm going to create another camera this time. So with that camera, I'll just call that shot 03 camera. I'm going to frame that camera again. Or you know what? I'll do something different. I'll just even duplicate that second camera by going edit duplicate. I'm going to call that shot 03 camera. And I'll just look through that camera here, camera 3. And then it's going to be a medium shot. So maybe, I don't know. I'll just press F to frame that. So maybe something like that. So maybe it's going to rotate like that. Okay, so what I'll do, there you go. So what I'll do is maybe I'll start with this shot. This is going to be roughly around 2 or maybe 3 seconds. I'll give it 3 seconds. So what I'll do is I'm going to, again, create another shot. And then I'm going to name that shot 3 wax struggling. And then it's going to be using camera 3. And again, we have to make sure it's the frame immediately after the previous one. So that's going to be 201. And it's going to be around 3 seconds. So maybe I'll just put in 290. Okay. And then again, make sure that this is exactly the same as the bottom. And this is exactly the same as the bottom. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'm going to create a shot. So notice now that if I hit play, see in the sequencer, I have a sequence there. So sequence, and then sequence, and then we have that shot as well. Okay. So what I'll do next is I'm going to perhaps maybe I'll animate the camera. I'll select the camera. It's going to be, again, 201 to 290. So I'll just move this around. So maybe 300. And then just make sure to move this. And again, it's probably going to be somewhere 201. So maybe somewhere here. So what I'll do is set a keyframe for that camera. And maybe at frame, I don't know, 290, I'll just rotate that a little bit there. So Whack is going to be doing something, showing that he's struggling, for example. So it's going to look something like that. So let's have a look at our shot this time. Okay, our sequence. So this is our sequence. It's going to shot 2, and then going to shot 3. So there you go. Now, again, you don't really want to think about animation for the characters too much. You can animate it a little bit if you want. So for example, I can potentially, right, animate this, maybe animate it left to right. So what I'll do is, he's struggling. So maybe at frame 201, so maybe where's 201 here? So maybe 201 here, or frame 200, I'll have him, you know, rotate a little bit. And then maybe rotate, and then maybe I'll have it rotate around, and then rotate back. Again, you don't have to, but the idea is it just perhaps gives you a better idea of what the character is doing if it's animated a little bit. So if I hit play, again, playing our sequence, we have our sequence there. And there you go. So now our character's there, and then our shot. So Whack is just looking around. There you go. And now I have those 3 shots. Now, we can continuously do this, but you get the idea in terms of what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to complete all the shots there. Now, if you have the gecko character, for example, in one of the shots, all you need to do, as I mentioned, since we imported the gecko character, you know what? This is actually fine. So maybe I can just I can just move it directly. So that's okay. I can just move it directly. I'll just go to my perspective view. And again, for any shots that require the gecko, I can just move that gecko. So maybe he starts somewhere here. So maybe he's actually behind. So not sure. Let's see what the shots involved. Okay, so we can actually see gecko, you know, somewhere here, right? Peeking through. Okay, there. Okay, there you go. So this particular shot happens at, so after the shot, so roughly around 4 seconds. So what you can do is, maybe it happens roughly at frame 291, right? So it starts at 291. So I'll just change this. So let's say 350. So the idea behind that is at 291, gecko becomes visible. So maybe at around 290 or 291 is already there. So I'll set a keyframe. So again, for this character, I'll set a keyframe. But remember, before that, he's not there. So what I'll do is I'll actually move that character, maybe somewhere to the bottom. The important thing is we just want him invisible, right? You can even animate the visibility, but I'll just have the character go underneath. So see, now we can see it. So the idea is he's still invisible in the previous shots. So there you go. Still invisible in the previous shots. See, not there. And then not here as well. But the moment we have a new shot, so for example, if I create a new shot here, or maybe I'll just duplicate this existing camera. So this is camera for, let's just call it gecko. There you go. And then I'll just reposition our camera by just going to camera for gecko. And maybe at 290, he's there already. So what I can do is, maybe it's going to be a shot. Again, for this one, I'm going to select the camera. I'm going to make the lens longer, so maybe 30, wider. So I can actually see. The problem is if it's not wide, it's going to go inside the prop. So maybe I'll just make that 20. Okay, there you go. Or you know what? Maybe 25. There. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to perhaps create another shot. It's going to be, again, create shot. It's going to be 4. Gecko peak. And then it's going to be using camera shot for gecko. And then remember, it's 291. And then maybe ends at 350. So 291, 350. And then I'll create that shot. So if you have a look here, so see if I hit play, now I have that sequence going. So again, the idea behind that is we're trying to visualize what will happen in that particular frame. Now, again, there's a lot of things you can add here. So if you feel that, for example, we need to add elements on the background, then those are things you can think about, right? So just to show you, maybe to make this composition better, what I may want to do is, you know what? We might need to duplicate this one. So maybe this one. I want to duplicate that, and maybe I'll want to position that maybe somewhere here. And the reason for that is, see, that maybe that will look better from a composition point of view. Okay, I might rotate that. There you go. So that actually makes it look better. So again, those are things that you need to think about when you're doing layout. Now, there's certain stuff that you can't really do, right? Like you can't or change the environment too much. But if it's just props on the background, normally we allow layout artists to just modify some of the elements in the background to make it even better. So see, that's actually flying there. So I'll just move that. Okay, so with that said, right, hopefully that's clear in regards to how you can go about doing it. My recommendation is to just save your layout. Under the layout directory, give it a name. So let's say layout, and maybe this is called scene 02 or 01, and then just put your name there, and then I'll just save that as. So now you have your own version of the layout. Okay, so looking forward to seeing how you go about creating those the layout.